Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. I have to tell you something, people. I'm getting a little annoyed on Facebook. I always go into Facebook. I get in touch with all my high school friends, college friends. I promote my show. Lots of good friends on Facebook. But the problem lately is I'm getting lots of these friend requests, and there's some that are just weird names I can't read, and they have no face. They have no profile. And then there's the half-naked girls that are like requesting you, and they're complete BS bogus accounts. But what's sick about it is I find out I have like 8 mutual friends who are friends with them. And I'm thinking, who the hell is taking these accounts on? I know it's a lot of comedians I know who want to build their numbers up, but they're all fake. And then the other thing I hate is lately is a big trend is, there's groups on Facebook. I have a Cooper Talk page. I don't update it. I haven't updated it for 2 years. You go through my personal page. But there's groups, and the people add you to the group, and I'm fine if you request me and say, hey, do you want to be in this group? And if I want to be in it, I'll be in it. But some people are just adding me to these groups. So I'm in a group I don't want to be in, and that's one thing to piss you off. But then you sit there and you get out of the group, and they keep adding you. No lie, I had 4 people re-add me into a group the other day, and then I finally found out, because I do it off my phone, I found out if you go to your desktop, you can actually get out of the group forever. But people, if you have a group and people get out, they don't like you. Don't get back in. Anyway, we have a great show. This guy's great. I'm going to be honest. It's one of these actors who I see. Like a few weeks ago, I had Patrick Fischler on, who whenever I see him, he kills it. My guest tonight, whenever I see him, he kills it. He's always on. He makes me laugh. My girlfriend loved him in About a Boy. She thought he was so sweet. And that's Chris Diamatopoulos. How you doing, Chris?
How are you? Good to see you.
Now you said you're new to Facebook and all this?
Yeah, I'm a dinosaur with regard to the social media stuff. So and I when Stooges first came out, the studio wanted us to have some sort of a presence, and I didn't have any. I didn't have Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and so I started a Twitter page and I had it for just a couple of months to try and sort of stay on top of what the studio wanted us to do, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and I wasn't engaged in it in any way, so I just kind of shut it down after all of that rigmarole ended, and then recently I started a new job, and it was highly recommended that I, join the rest of the world. And so I have now a new Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook page.
I love the fact that you say I started a new job. Like yeah, hey, I just started selling insurance. I mean, you're a known actor, a voice actor. I mean, it's a new job for you, but for most people, that term a new job. So you're very humble. That's good because you're like, it's a job.
Look, I've been a working actor my entire life. I can say that in all honesty. I started acting in TV commercials and doing extra work and theater work when I was 9 years old in Toronto, Canada.
I had read that. Now, how did you gravitate at 9? As a little kid, did you say, I want to do this, or it's just odd?
Yeah, and I'm, my family's like the least sort of stage family ever. I mean, my folks are Greek immigrants, both from Athens, and I was a really high energy kid, and my mom, a credit to my mother, her instincts, watching me with all my antics at home, she thought, we got to put this energy into something. And there was a local, downtown Toronto, there was this acting class, and it was, 9 Saturdays in a row, and then at the end of it, you put on a show, and some agents come, and they scrounged together the money and set me up for this class, and I went and did that. I must have been 8 years old, and I had a ball doing it. It was like improv stuff and comedy stuff, and I loved it, and I met like-minded kids. Most of the other kids were older, and I got this local agent, and that I sort of was off and running. I had a real interest in it. I always loved movies, loved TV, loved going to the theater with school trips and stuff like that. And so I was hooked instantly.
So you start doing this, and you start booking commercials, which must be amazing for a little kid. I mean, you're just going for fun, and then there's some cash in the commercials.
I didn't have a clue what any of it really meant, what any of it was, and the cash was great because I was able to help my folks out. I had no idea that any cash was coming in. They sort of. It was a good time for all that to be happening. I sort of started started around 9, and then by around 11 I started hitting a real sort of physical awkward phase.
Right.
And the agent stopped calling. I was really that pre-puberty thing hit me hard, and it lasted probably until I was about 18 or 19. And so I remember mourning not having any more action. Like at 11, I was all dried up.
Right. But that must be hard also because, it's like anything. As kids, we're sensitive. When you go through puberty, you're sensitive. And now you're a working actor, and you must be sitting there going, there's a lot of rejection in the Hollywood world, but to start getting rejection at
early,
11.
Man. I learned early.
So what did your parents say to you? Well, you're going through a stage,
I'll tell you, man, it's interesting. And I probably wouldn't have been able to surmise it this way even a few years ago, but it's really all great the way it's happened. I wouldn't change a thing. The rejection is ongoing and will be forever as long as I'm in the industry. That's just a given. But I feel like I'm such a naturally sensitive person that I think getting rejected day in and day out from an early age is just what the doctor ordered for me, because it actually helped me build a minimal thick skin. Without it, I would have just been a puddle. So I think the rejection was really good for me. But no, nobody really sort of quantified that the calls stopped coming in. I really sort of put two and two together, and I realized when I'd call my agent, oh, they're busy, they couldn't answer the phone, whatever, and then they finally just dropped me. So what I kind of put two and two together and realized I want to keep working and I want to keep doing stuff. So I just started going to the arts section classifieds in the local newspapers, looking for any amateur work and any available productions that wanted background work or literally anything. And I just started setting myself up for all those things. And that's how I just slowly got into musical theater and realized, I can kind of carry a tune, I can kind of sing. And then I realized, wow, I actually can sing. And then in doing that in high school and doing it in amateur theater, it sort of created this whole new career for me that I went into for a good almost 15 years, and I worked on Broadway.
So you have this niche now. You know where you're going. You're like, okay, I'm good at this musical theater, but you're still a young guy. You're in Toronto. How do you end up in New York, and what are you doing in between that? Because it's a big bridge from Toronto to New York, and
I did everything I could possibly do that was on the amateur level in terms of theater and film. And when I was 17, I realized really quickly that I could sing, and then as soon as I figured out I could sing, I sang every day and everywhere I possibly could, much to my family and my brother's chagrin. He was literally just like, shut up, enough. But I do have to say, I self-taught myself within the course of a year and a half to really sort of run the whole facility of my voice from top to bottom, and I had and have a pretty big vocal range. So when it came time for the school musical, I really I strongly suggested to my music teacher, who started seeing that I was really engaged in this, that we do Man of La Mancha, which is sort of a big production, and one thing led to another, and I ended up persuading him to do it, and we did it. And when I did that, I realized that if I could pull that off, this is sort of really something I want to do. And I found another local agent who wasn't sort of the cutesy kid agent, but was actually a talent agent. And I tracked him down and sat down with him and showed him all the amateur stuff I'd done. And he was this great personality, this really great guy named Frank Hogg. He's not with us anymore, rest his soul. But anyway, he saw that I had all the energy in the world and all the best intentions, but he really sort of wanted to hone me in. And there was an audition for a professional show called Forever Plaid. It was a big off-Broadway production. Yeah, great show, great four-part harmony show. And they were building the new company in Toronto and building a new company in Vancouver. And I went into the open call. It was, like an 8-hour day where everyone from Toronto was there, and they ended up casting, 3 30-year-old guys and me. And that really changed everything. I left high school just before graduation. I went to Vancouver to open the company, and I worked in Vancouver for a year. It was, it was my college years, basically. It was going to Vancouver and getting an apartment and, doing this show, and then they brought me into Toronto, and then from there, I met this producer named Garth Drabinski, who worked for Live Ent, who was doing all the Phantom of the Opera and all of the big productions, and they brought me into audition for one of their shows. Andrew Lloyd Webber had this new show called The Music of the Night, which was a compilation of all his stuff. And I must have been 18, 19 years old, and they needed an understudy for the male lead, this great singer named Colm Wilkinson, and he was singing these duets and trios with Melissa Manchester and Betty Buckley. And I ended up getting the part of this understudy, and they never thought the guy was going to be sick because he was a workhorse. And it turned out that I had to go on a few times and sing these duets with these amazing women. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up getting Joseph in the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I understudied Donny Osmond. I met a girl on that. She lived in New York. I wanted to be with her in New York. I moved to New York, auditioned for Les Mis, and I was in Les Mis on Broadway.
So you get on Broadway. Now, how old are you?
21.
So that must be, first of all, I bet a lot of actors, you know how that's anything, people they're probably like, God, that punk,
listen. So I guess I could see that because I say that all the time. Particularly in the new leg of my career, which has been the last maybe 12 years, television and film. It's a grind though, and it's all about how long you grind. And so I was grinding from 9 until 21 to get there. I worked literally every day at this thing. So yeah, now you're right though, because 21 is a super young age. I was in the ensemble in Les Mis, right?
Right. I mean, it's hey, there's Cats, there's Les Mis. Right. I mean, that's like the big.
I was a happy camper, but I always had my sights set on doing more and more and more, and it wasn't from a standpoint of. I just knew that the more that I could challenge myself with, the better I could become, and the more engaged I would be in the material that I was working on. And I always had it in the back of my mind that agent dropped me at like 10, 11.
Right.
I always wanted to get back on camera. So I just needed to find a way back. And, New York was a great training ground for me, and particularly just being on stage 8 shows a week. Every week, month after month, year after year. I did Les Mis, and then I
How long did you do Les Mis for?
I did Les Mis for 2.5 years.
So you're sitting there, so as you said, every night you're getting, and
it's a grind, man.
It's like you have Sundays off.
No, you have Mondays off. Mondays off. Yeah,
So
two Wednesday, 2 Saturday.
And it is a grind, because a friend of mine was in Phantom of the Opera. And he said, he was Raoul or whatever.
Raoul, yeah.
Oh, and then he took over for the Phantom. Then
Yeah,
he
cool.
did it in Vegas, and he said, problem was, everyone else, he's the Phantom. He has to sing. Everyone else is going out having fun. He goes,
right.
I can't do anything. I'm in Vegas because...
Got to live like a monk.
Yeah, my voice, I can't, it has to be right.
Yeah, he goes out and talks all night. He's done.
And you're, at a young age, and you're in New York, you're on Broadway. I mean, it's like, that's, as a actor, that must be an amazing feeling at a young age. So now, after Les Mis, where do you go?
So while I was in Les Mis, I did a bunch of like summer stock stuff. I would take sort of leaves of absence to go do other roles like Evita and all these other things in local playhouses like Pittsburgh Civic Light Opera and sort of all over. And then there was an audition for the touring company of the Full Monty, and I was dating a girl while I was in Les Mis who was also in Les Mis, and things weren't working out with us, and I just thought maybe it would be best if I just left the company. It wouldn't be awkward for her. I would leave. I'll audition for this Full Monty tour. Maybe I'll get it, and everyone will be happy. It won't be so awkward. And so I auditioned for it, and I got it. But she auditioned for it too, and she got it. So there we were, awkwardly on tour together. She's a lovely person, but it just wasn't working out. So anyway, I went to Chicago. To Toronto and Chicago with the Full Monty, and then came back to Broadway with it. And while I was doing the Full Monty, I realized at that point that I really sort of wanted to make it back on camera and actually start an adult career on screen. And that's when I met my wife randomly on the subway. She was a young actress. She was 22. We had this 10-minute conversation while riding the train, just about acting, and she was telling, I was kind of, telling her that I was really ready for a change and I needed to do something else. And she just sort of said, well, why don't you quit your job and move to Los Angeles?
That must be something different, because you had been very successful in theater. I mean, you think about it, the Full Monty. I mean, you're not in, you're not in these little plays that
I was very blessed. No, you're right.
So you're doing that. And I think also it's something as an actor, you must sit there and start going, you know what? I don't want to do. I mean, theater's fun, but as you said, it's a grind. And you sit there and you go, and I have to travel. I mean, it just must be I used to stand up comedy on the road.
Yep.
And the difference that was every weekend, a week you were gone.
Yep.
And after a while, everything looks the same. But for you as an actor, you must want to say, hey, I got to really.
What was interesting for me was I've always had all these different voices in my head, and I've always known that I'm happiest when I'm learning something new and doing something that maybe scares me a little bit and performing. So what's great about the theater is really magnificent, and I'm really grateful for the time I spent on it and spent on stage. And I look back and realize that the reason that I was just so ready to leave was because I was I was in my 20s, and I wanted to see what else was out there. And I by no means conquered Broadway. I was a working actor then. I'm a working actor now. I'm just working in a different capacity now than I was then. I just knew that I needed to meet some new faces. I needed to get out of the city and try something new. I was a little comfortable, I think. I just started doing some like voiceover campaigns and some on-camera commercials, and so I was making a pretty good living, and I was grateful for it. But I was starting to get comfortable, and I was only 25.
Yeah, so now you decided that you're going to move to LA?
Yeah, so Becky and I, we had just met. She suggested we go out for pilot season, so I gave my 2 weeks notice to Full Monty. I quit the show, which is, it was pretty terrifying for me. I hadn't not worked in many, many, many years, so it was terrifying to not have a job. But we moved out to LA, took a little sublet, and I didn't work or even have an audition for almost 2 years.
Did you have an agent?
Nope.
So you're coming from this, you have a good resume from Broadway,
Yeah.
and you're coming out, and you're a good-looking guy. It's not like you're some ogre coming out like going, hey, it's like, so was that frustrating, and how'd you keep your mind in the game? Because it must be, you had been so not lucky, but...
No, you're right. It took some chutzpah to get myself in the situations, but there's a lot of luck. It's all luck in many ways, man. So, I came out to LA just expecting that the passion, the tenacity, and the talent would measure up to something. And most of the agents I met with were very frank with me and just told me that I wasn't attractive enough to work on camera, to work in television, and that I looked a lot older than I was. I was 26, and I probably looked like I was 40. I'm 40 now. I finally aged into myself.
Right.
But and most of them said that all of my theatrical work was going to be a detriment on my resume because they'd look at that and say, oh, he's too broad, or it's too theater, it's too dramatic, it's not screen enough. So for the longest time, I didn't have a resume. I hadn't done anything. So it was very frustrating. All I wanted to do was go back to New York, and I just bought an apartment there, and it was just sitting there. And my girlfriend at the time, kept saying, no, we got to stay. This is what you want to do. You just got to get through. And the worst part was I had agents in New York saying, there's work. They want you, there's this. And I sort of said to myself, no, I can't say yes. I have to try and do this. It was not fun for a couple of years.
When do you start getting work out here?
So my wife started working immediately, and she's an amazing talent, and she's incredibly professional, and it doesn't hurt that she's impossibly beautiful, but she's still very young looking for her age, but at the time she looked like she was 16, and she was 23, 24, and she looked like a 16-year-old, so there was a ton of work for her. So she came out and she started working right out the gate, and what was great about that was I got to learn a lot watching her. I got to learn about the mechanics of the industry, and I didn't even know what a pilot was when I came out here. Everyone kept talking about pilots, and I was like, what the? I thought it was referring to some sort of a flight academy. I really had no clue what the hell they were talking about. No, I wish I was lying. So I started working when I realized, and this is what worked for me, and this is the truth. I kept getting, a random appointment once every 6 or 7 months, and I'd get it the day of, and I'd go in and I'd bomb. I just couldn't do well. And there were 2 times where they called, a freelance agency called me and said, hey, there's an appointment. It's coming in 4 days. You're going to go to this audition in 4 days. We'll get you the material. They got me the material a little early, and I actually just took the time to work on the stuff and memorize it and make some choices. And that happened maybe twice in the first year, and both times I got callbacks, and both times I got a chance to meet the producers and work with the directors. I didn't get the job, but it showed me, at least, it sort of upped my level of confidence to say, well, yeah, okay, so given an opportunity that I can actually prepare for, that I might remotely be right for, I can be down to one of the 5 guys that they're thinking of. And as soon as that happened, it put a little pep in my step, and it got me doing my old searching in the indie circuit thing for anything that was happening. I booked a couple of independent films, put together a little reel, had a little bit of a resume, and then I finally got an agent. Once I got the agent, I basically said to them, send me in for anything. It doesn't matter if it's one role, one line on a soap opera. I don't care what it is. Send me in for it. I want to meet every casting director. I want every opportunity I can get. And I started going in for everything. And then I started booking. One line here, two lines there. I think the first gig I booked was Frasier. Jeff Greenberg was a casting director, and he was amazing. I got the audition the day of. I went in, and I paraphrased every line. I did terribly, and he told me off, and he said, look, it's a sitcom, but to these writers, it's Shakespeare. So say the lines that are written, and if you need time to work on them, wait out in the waiting room and learn the bloody lines. And it was amazing that he did that and then let me come back in, because I did, and I did the lines, and I got the part. It was a small part, but it was enough to give me the confidence to push even further. And I think it was within that month. Once I got that part, I probably booked a string of other little guest stars that, grew from 2 lines to 5 lines to 3 scenes to 6 scenes. And once I did that, I realized, okay, I can do this. It's just a matter of numbers. The more I audition, the more opportunity I'll have to book. And the more I book, the more confidence I'll have to go for the stuff that, can actually build a career for me. And it was an audition for a David Kelly pilot where they were looking for an Italian chef that sort of opened my eyes to the memory of the fact that what I wanted to do was play with these voices in my head. And it was a Jason Kadam show, and he was just lovely, and he let me think that I had them all fooled, that I was Italian straight off the boat. And I went for it and did this pilot, and the show didn't get picked up, but that sort of locked it in for me that what I really was a character actor, and I just had to sort of keep working until I got older.
But I mean, the character actors are always the best, because you get to play everything. It's interesting. That's why I have so many character actors on my show, because they're just you guys go on and you deliver. I mean, it's cool. Like you watch it and you go, oh yeah, you remember that person. You don't always know their name.
Sure.
But I do, because I'm a geek like that. I know. But so now you're working on now. When's your first recurring? Was it The Starter Wife or?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the first recurring thing I did I did this TV movie called Behind the Camera: The Unauthorized Story of Mork and Mindy, which was sort of one of these expose sensationalized NBC TV throwaway movies. It's like $1 million budget, but it was an opportunity for me to play, arguably one of the greatest comic talents that's that was ever here, and it was a chance for me to try yet again another voice, or many voices actually, and that led to an arc on a show called State of Mind that starred Lily Taylor. It was on Lifetime.
Okay.
I think I did 10 episodes on that, and then I think the next recurring was on Starter Wife. Yeah.
No, it must be.
No, that was a series regular actually on Starter Wife.
It must be something, to play Robin Williams, just for the fact that, and you've done this later when you played Mo. It's just one of those things where critics are going to slant. I mean, it's the thing is, no matter, you can be the best Robin Williams there is, but people are going to sit there and go, oh, well, sure. He wasn't done. I mean, that were you a little intimidated to go into a role of such a legend? I mean, he's passed, but he was such a comedic legend back then even.
I wasn't, and this is going to sound cheesy, but it's true. My intentions were really pure. They were going to make this movie whether I did it or not. It was going to happen whether I did it or not. I was an actor that was looking for an opportunity to stretch and show my chops. Most of the good roles go to the actors that are already established. We all know that. And so you have to take a chance when you're starting out. And for me, it was, well, let me do the best that I can do while trying to actually venerate the image of the subject I'm portraying. And I didn't think twice about how it was going to be received. And the truth of the matter is that it was critically received really well. And I never read that stuff, but I remember my agent at the time flipped out when the Hollywood Reporter and Variety gave really great performance reviews. And I was thrilled with that. Look, you're going to have detractors at every step of the game. So I mean, there's no point in trying to please anybody really. For me, the other great thing was nobody knew me, so I was able to do the job it aired opposite the NCAA championship finals, so like 80,000 people saw it.
Right.
So it it didn't really matter, but it was great fun. And you mentioned Mo, and the Stooges was very similar. Everyone was ready to hate it. What's really funny was it was a New York Times critics pick, and no one would really know that. A, because the studio didn't put anything behind any of that, but B, because you just wouldn't expect that. And you don't do it for that reason.
So you do the Mar comedy, and then you're doing the Starter Wife. You're doing comedies pretty much.
Yeah, I think so. What ended up happening was after State of Mind was a drama. Starter Wife was a comedy, and then I did a season of 24.
What was that like? Because that's a very popular show.
I loved working on that show.
And you're coming into.
Yeah, I played the chief of staff to Cherry Jones' president. I mean, she's just a brilliant actor, and it was such a well-oiled machine because I think it was season 8. So I loved it for a number of reasons. One, because I thought they shot in a very dynamic way, but because of the way they shot, it also was a terrific schedule for me as an actor because my wife was shooting Ugly Betty in New York, and I was shooting 24 in L.A. And so they did this, what they call block shooting. They would set up a set and then shoot every scene within a few episodes that takes place on that set. So I could shoot out 2 or 3 episodes in 2 or 3 days and then have several weeks off so I could fly to New York and spend some time with my wife. So I loved it for that reason. But I had a great time. I had a great time doing that show. The camera work was great. The actors were great. It moved quick. That was good. That was good fun.
Now you get to play Robin Williams, and then you get to play Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, right. Actually, and that was from the same camp as 24. It was those guys that actually put together the Kennedys.
So how do you get prepared to play?
Well, the Sinatra thing is really interesting, and a lot of nobody really could or would know this, but the mission was to play a Sinatra that we haven't seen before. They didn't want the Sinatra that we've seen a million times. They wanted a sort of penitent, humbled Sinatra. They wanted Sinatra as influenced by the magic of the Kennedys. So they really didn't want grandstanding Sinatra. They really didn't want the bravado. They wanted, and they didn't want a direct impression either. That was the other thing that was the missive that they put out to all of us. So that was an interesting, for me, the main reason that I did it was, again, an opportunity to try my hand at a different voice. But truthfully, it was because I knew that all my scenes were with Tom Wilkinson. And I just think he's one of the best actors out there. And as far as character actors go, that's a career that I wouldn't mind emulating.
Well, what's great is, the Sinatra in real life, I mean, the reason he stopped talking to Peter Lawford was because of the whole, Peter Lawford said, oh, you know what, you're connected to the mafia, they think he's going to stay at Bing Crosby's house. And that's the way Sinatra was. Sinatra said, screw you, I'm never talking to you again. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about this show, because people don't know. I mean, Sinatra, I'm sure that was the time he was very humbled, because it's like, wait a second, I'm Sinatra, the president. I've been helping him. Wait, you're not going to stay with me? And I heard it was more of a, what's his name, Bobby Kennedy, mm-hmm. who made the decision more than, but then they blamed, Peter Lawford, but, he shouldn't have been there anyway. He was just hanging out because he knew the Shrivers. So now you're doing this, and now all of a sudden you're acting, you're getting a lot of work.
Yeah, things are going okay.
And now, when does the Three Stooges opportunity come up, and were you a Stooges fan as a kid?
Okay. 2 separate questions I'll answer quickly. So yes, when work was happening, work was great. The thing that I hadn't anticipated moving out to LA was how challenging the downtime was. In New York, there was always something to get involved in. Even if, just the city in general, as an actor, there'd be a voiceover thing here, or a TV commercial there, or you got to do this, or go to a class, or whatever. In LA, when it's dead, man, it's hard to find not the motivation, but action. And I didn't recognize the whole pilot season beast until I was so deep in it. And I have to say, man, that is a whole different kind of grind, because working on a guest star here and there, doing a recurring here and there, maybe getting a part in a TV movie, that's all well and good. But the meat and potatoes of an actor's life, particularly before they've achieved any sort of acclaim, they want to get on a series, right? And so pilot season, typically or historically, between January and late March, early April, is the time when all of the networks put out their new shows, dramas and comedies. And so I was, for 10 years, so the process would be you go in and you read for the casting director likes you, they bring you in to read for the producers like you, they bring you in to do a work session with the director, then business affairs from the studio calls your agents and they open a deal. They open the deal for what your contract's going to be potentially for 7 years if this thing gets picked up. Then you go in and you test for the studio, you and maybe 8-10 guys, all test for the same part. They whittle it down to maybe 3 or 4 guys, or maybe everyone gets kicked out except you, and then they bring in a ringer. Then you go in for the network. Then the network deliberates, and you either get it or you don't. And so I was involved in that process probably over 50 times, which, when you add each session to it, it's like, over 200 times of these potential. You got the contract in front of you for 7 years every time, right? So it's the potentiality of, holy shit, this could be the thing. And it happened so many times, and it didn't happen every time, that it sort of numbed me to the ability to sort of think that, maybe that thing is out there. It just completely destroyed that. So Stooges came along twice for me. So first of all, I was a die-hard Stooge fan as a kid. And Will and Sean would attest to this. Both of them knew the Stooges. Both of them admired the Stooges. But I was certifiably insane about the Stooges as a kid, particularly as a young kid up until, probably about 15 or 16. And then I kind of lost touch with them. And then it wasn't until I started hearing about the embers of this movie in like early 2000s that I started thinking about them again. But it was a similar sort of thing. I knew they were going to make this movie, and Pete and Bob, I remember they put out some sort of an article in Variety, basically like a call to arms. They wanted Mo, Larry, and Curly to walk in the door, and they were like, we don't care who you are, we don't care what you do for a living, or just if you can be Mo and you can walk in and be Mo, we'll give you a chance, but you got to fucking be Mo. Sorry. Okay. So anyway, I resisted the audition only because I love the Stooges so much, and the plain truth was I physically resembled none of them, and I never identified as any of them. My love for the Stooges was all 3 of them. I mean, if anything, I went through phases.
I took you for a Curly Joe Besser guy.
Bite your tongue, man. No, but when I was a kid, when I was really young, I loved Curly. It was the obvious choice. I really started loving Larry in my like mid-teens, just watching what Larry did. I loved Shemp, and I loved Mo. Mo made me laugh my ass off, but I never really identified with any of them. And I remember commiserating to my wife. It was in the midst of one of these pilot seasons where I was getting close to stuff and just not booking the job. I said, they're doing this Stooges thing, and there's a big open call, and I don't know, I feel kind of bitter about it. I want it. And she said, well, you love the Stooges. I said, I know, but I don't look like Larry. I don't have time to gain the weight to do the Curly thing. And she said, look, you're Mo, and you just need to, forget about all the rest and just go be Mo. And so I thought about it, and I spent a good few days in front of the mirror really sort of just trying to find out and figure out what that would be. And I was surprised because the years of, I watched Stooges every single day. We would record them on VHS and on Beta, and my brother and I would just play them back over and over and over. It was pretty quick. I realized, okay, so the first thing is physically I got to shift my body up. So I went to a foam store and I bought foam to sort of shorten my neck. I held my shoulders up. I went to a wig shop, bought a wig, put it on. I filled in my eyebrows. I put on the scowl, and I just sort of thought, all right, well, let's give this a try. And I got to the audition, and no one else was in character. And there was a memo sent out basically saying, come in. We want you to be Mo, Larry, and Curly, but let's not be ridiculous here. Just come in and And I literally showed up dressed like in the worst Mo costume you've ever seen. And but fortunately, it was it wasn't enough to detract them from wanting to see me again. And it was a long process. The first audition was in October, and I didn't get the job until May.
Okay.
And I auditioned 14 times.
Wow. So now, are you just sitting there? as you said, you've been through the whole pilot thing. You've been all through that. Now you're going, okay, I'm going to try this. And now you're sitting there going, holy crap, this is longer than the pilot thing. What would they say to you? Hey, you know what? Come back. I mean, for 14 times, once you get past 7, you have to say, are they ever even going to make this movie?
So, after the first time, I got some notes from the writer, Mike Cerrone, who's a great guy who was in the room. Basically just told me to calm down. He's like, I know you, I can tell you love the Stooges. He said, I love the Stooges too. This is going to be a long process. You gotta ration your passion here, and just because this is going to take a while. I started hearing by the second and third audition that there really was no chance that I was going to get this, because the studio, as much as the Farrellys were saying we want Mo, what the studio was saying was we want a name, which I don't blame them. It makes sense. And over the course of those 14 auditions, the role was offered out to other people. And there were various reasons why it didn't happen. And when it wouldn't happen, contract, scheduling stuff, they would call again and say, all right, come back in. And so what was happening was Pete and Bob were pleading their case for me to be Mo to the studio. But the studio just didn't want to hear it, didn't see it, there are certain metrics, I think, that go into these decisions, and I wasn't part of that metric. And Pete leveled with me at one point. I think it was maybe the 6th, 7th audition. He said, look, and I never showed up out of character, and I never even spoke to them out of character. I spoke to them like Mo, which is, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I just didn't, I'm so not him in person that I didn't want to give them any indication to see me as anything other than Mo. He said, look, you're doing a great job, but you got to help us. Your wig is terrible. Your costume is terrible. I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, all right, say no more. So with my own money, I hired a makeup artist, this great makeup artist. He's an Oscar, I think, award winner, Christian Tinsley, who did the makeup for Passion of the Christ. I had him make prosthetic under-eye bags and earlobes, and really sort of, made me look like Mo. We didn't use any of that in the movie, but he did it for the rest of the auditions. And I rented a proper weight suit and proper vintage 1940s clothing from Universal Wardrobe. And I rented this stuff out for months, just in the off chance that they would call me to go back in. And when they finally did, it's as you said, the studio was losing faith in the movie. After they'd cast Sean and Will, and it was taking so long to cast Mo, the studio asked Pete and Bob to put together a short to sort of show them what the vision for the film was going to be. And Pete called me and he said, we want you to do this with us. It's not just you getting the job here, it's the job happening. So, don't screw it up. And I did that. And then I got the call. Pete called me and he said, look, I've never known an actor to be more deserving of a role, and I just feel like God's going to give me cancer if I don't give you this, so you got the job.
So you go into that movie, and Farrelly, everyone loves the Farrelly brothers.
Oh, they're great guys, man.
If you watch comedy, whether it be Kingpin,
Yep.
you love them. So the movie comes out, and you said it got good reviews.
Yeah.
And so now, how does that change your career? Because all of a sudden, is that after that you got Office and Arrested Development, or how did people sit there and did they look at you as like, well, wait a second,
well,
this guy's Mo?
I'll say this. So it changed my life because I got to live out a childhood fantasy of mine, and it changed my life because I got to meet and work with not only Pete and Bob, whom I would walk to the end of the earth for, but also Will and Sean. I think they're terrific guys and just great talents. It changed my life because that is a singular opportunity, whether we did another 5 movies in the Stooge vein or not. That one was the one where it was do or die. There were so many people saying this is an abomination, nobody should do this, you shouldn't make it. And our point was, we're making the movie in honor of the Stooges. This is a representation of the Stooges. We're not saying we're Moe, Larry, and Curly. We're saying, this is us doing Moe, Larry, and Curly. Yes, and so it was a great opportunity. It didn't translate into the career in the way that, maybe in the vast regions of my mind I would have hoped. What ended up coming back to my managers and agents was, well, he was great as Mo, but can he do anything else? And that always caused me to sort of smile, because it's like, well, yeah,
I've been on Broadway.
Well, no, but it's more though that, like, I don't look anything like that, and I don't sound anything like that, and so one would think that if I can shift to do that, then maybe I can just do the regular other thing. But no, The Office and Arrested Development did come on the heels of that, but that was, I think, a credit to Allison Jones, who was the casting director on those. She's just brilliant, and she was intuitive, decisive, and kind enough to give me, who was still an unknown even after the Stooges, an opportunity to go into those rooms and win these roles. So there was some gumption that came as a result of doing the movie and simply having my name out there, I guess. But no, man, it's continued to be a grind. It was a grind before, was after, and I think when it comes to doing the work that you want to do, it's always a grind, and that in and of itself is gratifying somehow. So
as you do it, you're working, and then you end up on episodes.
Yeah, man.
Which I love. Kathleen Rose has been on the show.
She hasn't won 3 Emmys for that is unbelievable.
Everyone I know who watches that. My girlfriend, she likes different TV, and when she came, moved out, I said, you got to watch this show, because I would watch it, and she was like, holy crap, this thing is great. Now, for you, it must be great, because you really play a nut. I mean, as an actor, it must be great, and when we'll get to Silicon Valley, you play nutcases, and I mean, you're just over the top, but it doesn't look it. You don't.
That's kind of you to say.
If you've been in Hollywood, you say,
"Yeah,
I've met that guy." Yeah. So how did they tell you to come? Because John Pankow was the douche who she was involved with.
Brilliant.
Oh, he's
amazing. He's such a good actor. But and you talk about character actors. That guy's
he was
fantastic.
a douche to Kathleen. And you like Kathleen.
Yes.
Then you come on and you're just. I mean, some of the scenes you're just being such a cold, like you're having sex with her as you're like just sitting there, and everyone knows you're using her, and she's like, "How did that role come about? Did you play it exactly how you wanted, or did you go harder?"
So much of the episodes to me is like the best kept secret. I think it's such a brilliant show. It's such a horrifying and illuminating look at this industry, and it is so absolutely divinely written by Jeffrey and David, and everything that you see on the screen was on the page, and I mean everything. I mean even the cadence of the way that the characters speak is indicated in parentheticals. They put in guttural noises. Like, they'll write. I mean, there isn't a single thing that is done on screen that they don't write. They're so specific, which is a very different way to work. A lot of writers, want improv, or they want the actors to play with the material. Jeffrey and David, it's almost written like a musical composition. They hear it a certain way. So I auditioned for that role on my iPhone. I was in Toronto shooting a movie. This movie, Dr. Cabby, which was a lot of fun, and I played another horrible human being on that. But anyway, I thought there's no chance in hell that I'm going to get this, but I loved the material, so I really went for it. And it was just luck that I read it in the cadence that they had heard it, and so I got the part. And one of the first things that struck me as unique was, as soon as I got to London, we did a table read for the studio, all of us and all of the studio executives. We did a table read of every single episode. It was like a 7-hour table read, so they could hear everything, and then we could go into shooting. I've never seen that happen before. Normally, they're writing scripts as you shoot. I mean, here everything was fully written. I was given the opportunity to inform some of the emotionality of the character, but they knew exactly what they wanted. So I basically showed up prepared, knowing every single word, and gave them their words as they had intended them. And then, you put me next to Kathleen, and all of a sudden I'm giving a good performance, because she's just so nuanced and so tragic.
Oh, it amazes me that she's not a household name, because everyone who watches it says, because I posted it when she was on the show, everyone who I know watches it were like, oh my God, she's so amazing in that show. And it's like
well, she's a unicorn, right? Because she's a beautiful, smart, self-effacing, funny actress. It's very, very hard to find that.
Now, did you have a lot of pleasure playing that role? Because, it's something that you go from, I mean, you're Mo, you do, when you do Mo, of course, you're Mo, but now you're doing this guy who's just, I mean, did you say, this is great, I'm just playing this whack job?
When you're given carte blanche to be a character that possesses little to no redeeming characteristics, it's liberating. Because you can do... So I got to utilize so much of what had been thrown in my face in this industry over the course of the years, from studio executives and casting directors and producers and agents and managers, and this idiosyncratic, vile behavior that had been, slung at me over the years. It was nice to sort of recognize that there was a great reason for it. It was an opportunity. It was fodder for me to just put it up on screen. So I took great pleasure in it.
I can imagine. And the thing is, though, now, going back to your career, you were doing The Office, Arrested Development episodes, working with the Farrellys.
Yep.
And then you get up on Silicon Valley. Now, did they sit there and say, this guy, did anyone see you in episodes and say, this guy would be perfect for the part?
No.
Because once again, you play the douche to the T.
It's fun. Thank you. That's nice of you to say. I'll take it as a compliment. I think that Castor Soto and Russ Hanneman are very different, diametrically opposed, actually. They both are not nice human beings, and they both certainly have a stance and a sort of view on life, but there is a sort of an elitist pedigree that Castor has that Russ definitely doesn't have. There's a proletariat vibe that Russ definitely lives in that Castor wouldn't be seen touching. I feel like they're maybe brothers from another mother. But no, I fought for that role. I actually fought for that role. I found out about the audition. I loved Silicon Valley.
Such a good show.
Massive fan of the show. And I got the material for the audition. It was lush, thick, 14 pages to just go in and read for them. And it was the wrong material. The character had completely changed. I'd worked on it for like 5-6 days, memorizing it, figuring it out, learning what I was going to do. And then when I got there, they said, "Oh, you got the wrong material. It's new material." I said, "Well, how many pages is it?" They said, "It's like 15 or 16 pages." And I'm not great at cold reads. And I said, "Look, let me just do the material I learned." And so I did it, and it didn't go over great because the character had changed, and they weren't interested in that material anymore. And I get it. So I called my agent the next day, and I said, "I really love that role." He said, "They're looking at someone else." Now, they were looking at someone else. This is a guy that I know. He's a good actor, and we both sort of came up from New York at the same time and started working in television around the same time. And he's good, and he's really good, and he deserves all the work that he's had, but he wasn't right for this role. And I said to my agent, no, they can't look at that guy. I'm the guy. He said, no, I think this one is done. It's him. And I think actually my agent reps him too. And I said, look, he's a great guy, but he's not right for this. He said, I think the ship has sailed. And so I called the casting director and I said, look, let me come in with the new material. Let me learn it. Let me come in. She said, I think they're moving quick on this, but if you want to come in, I'll work with you on it. We can put you on tape. I can't promise they'll watch it. It was Jeannie McCarthy. She's a great casting director. So I went in and I did it 6 ways from Sunday. Like I did different versions. I did like sort of a McConaughey version of Russ Hanneman. I did a real sort of Brooklyn-esque version of. We tried it in a number of different ways, and we sent it into the ether, and I got the part. And what was amazing was when I finally showed up on set, I approached Mike Judge and Alec Berg, who are just two of the smartest, nicest guys I've ever worked with, and I said, guys, I've been trying to get a hold of you to find out which version do you want, and their answer was, well, whatever you want to do.
Well, it's great. One of the great things is when you forget about the doors.
Yeah.
And that's something that you just watch. And once again, it's just in a basic writing. That's not funny.
Right.
About the doors. But when the way you acted out, we would just crack up because it's like, once again, Silicon Valley. I mean, the show just is so well written. It's so funny. And so, so you're involved in all these good projects. And now you also did the Family Guy, and you started doing voice stuff. How'd the voice stuff? Because I know you're Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
And how did Mickey Mouse come up? You're crazy guy. You're this guy. You're Mo, and then you're America's sweetheart, Mickey Mouse. How'd that happen?
It's so I before I came out to L.A. To sort of subsidize my Broadway career, because despite the fact that Broadway is an honor to do, sometimes it doesn't pay as well as you would hope. And so I started getting into a bunch of voiceover stuff, like, car commercials, banks, pharmaceuticals, whatever it was. And the voiceover stuff paid well, and it was kind of gratifying to do, just great to, work with my voice. When I came out to LA, that all dried up because none of the big ad houses cast out of Los Angeles. But there were all these casting directors for voice things, like animated things. And so my agents in New York had some pull, and they got me in to meet some of these casting people. And one of them is a casting director named Linda LaMontagne, who casts Family Guy and American Dad, among many, many other things.
I used to work at a restaurant with her sister.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a small
Denise,
world,
her
man.
sister's
Small
Denise.
world. Well, Linda has been tremendously generous to me in my career, particularly in the early days when nobody had a clue who I was, and she really gave me chances on some great shows, and continues to now bring me in, and it was doing a few animated things, with Linda that sort of got my toe dipped in, and then I heard that they were looking for a new voice for Mickey Mouse. They wanted to do these sort of retro shorts, sort of a callback to what Walt did back in the day. More like post Steamboat Willie stuff, Brave Little Tailor, and sort of the real sort of root of Mickey, but done in a modern way with a wink toward the past, and international shorts as well. They wanted to do them in multiple languages and have the new Mickey voice them in all these different languages. And I was really cautious about it, but I watched this documentary with Walt, and he had this very resonant baritone voice, and he was smoking and talking. And then when the interviewer asked him to do Mickey, he leapt onto his feet and engaged his body and did his Mickey. And I thought, oh, that makes sense, And so I really sort of just tried to copy what he did, and I did, and it worked out. And it's been a ball. It's been 4 seasons, or 3 or 4 seasons. I think I've done over 40 of the shorts. We just, I'm probably not supposed to say this, but we just did a very special, longer short that's going to come out next year. And it's been, everything from Mickey in Italian and French and Hindi and Portuguese to singing as Mickey, and it's just been a dream come true. I wear it with a real badge of honor.
Did you ever sit there and think, God, I'm Mickey Mouse, I've played Mo, I played Sinatra, I played Robin Williams. I mean, it's like you must sit there and go, you've played all these icons. It must be a great feeling.
It's a really, I feel so grateful to have had the opportunity to do those things, man. Really, truly.
Now, what were you shooting in New York on my brother's street?
That's so funny. What a small world.
No, because he put today, because my brother never sits there and really posts on Facebook, and I posted a picture of who's going to be on. I had you, and then Catherine Dent, and then there's a drummer, Kenny Aronoff.
Oh, cool.
And I always do it with a picture of me, and I go, it's a little photo lab app.
Oh, nice.
And he goes, yeah, that guy, they shoot a lot of stuff on my street, and his trailer was right in front of our building.
So funny.
So what were you shooting?
So I was shooting a pilot for Amazon, a drama called The Good Girls Revolt. It's just this very, very smart and acerbic period piece, 1969, Newsweek magazine, New York, and the embers of women equality in the workforce. It stars me and Anna Camp. Jim Belushi's in it. Hunter Parrish. This great actress named Genevieve Angelson. It's just this really great sort of. People are saying, "Wow, it's the answer to where Mad Men left off." I feel like it's very different than that, and has a different nuance to it. But I play the editor at large of Newsweek. Great character. This guy sort of straddling 2 generations. The old guard, and recognizing that there's a sea change coming. And so we did the pilot in New York, and Amazon picked it up for a full series. So we start shooting the series in a few weeks.
In New York?
We're going to be shooting in Los Angeles, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's weird how it works sometimes. It's like, you'd be sitting there, I could have my brother come up to you and say, hey, you're on the show with my brother.
Right.
And now what's it like for you to go back to drama? Because you've been doing you've been doing a lot of comedy.
I love both. And I just feel like wherever I can facilitate in a role is where I want to go. I started feeling like what started happening after Silicon Valley, it was such a fun character to play, and so broad and so specific, that some of the opportunities that were coming my way were sort of watered down versions of what Russ was, and I didn't want to do that. I always try to give my best attention to an opportunity that comes up, but I was actually sort of itching to do something completely diametrically different than what I had done last. So this came at the perfect time. This character is he's straight-laced, and he carries a heavy burden, and he's a man. You know what I mean? And I only have a vague sort of concept of what that might be, but this guy definitely is a man.
Now, is there ever theater in your future, or are you
For sure.
going, I mean, is that something you want to do?
For sure, yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm looking for the right opportunity. You know, I told you I did Man of La Mancha in high school. It's to date the most fun I've ever had on any production ever. And my wish list would be in 10 years to mount a Broadway production of that and do that. But no, I went to London and did a workshop of a show called Groundhog Day, the musical, the Bill Murray movie.
Right.
They're making that into a musical. I've been looking for sort of short-term engagements in the theater. That was just a couple of weeks. The Globe did. There have been a few opportunities that have come my way, but the engagements have just been a little too long. I've got 2 young kids, so I have to sort of tread carefully with regard to that. But I feel like maybe when the kids get a little older, and maybe when I've established myself more as a credible or bankable name, I can look to do something in the theater. It could be a lot of fun.
Now, is there a Three Stooges sequel coming up, or?
All signs point to yes. There's a script that's been written, and I know that Sean and Will and I are keen to do it. I don't know right now, because of their schedule, if and how Pete and Bob are going to be involved. By God, we would, it would be a real shame if they weren't. But I know that the C3 Entertainment, the guys who are the rights holders to the Stooges, they are very keen to make a second movie. So yeah, they're pushing forward to do it, and we're all on board. We're just still not sure when, where, and how.
Now, when does Good Girls Revolt start shooting?
So that'll start shooting in April.
Out here in LA.
Here, and it will. I think it's going to drop on Amazon. Is that the terminology? Drop?
I think.
Okay.
It's like I watched. It's something that I love Amazon.
Yeah,
so,
it'll be on Amazon Prime in December, I believe.
Okay, so they're going to do it. So
they'll do the full season.
Right.
Yeah,
that's always good too. Now, it must also be good for as an actor now, because you've been in so many different roles that with all the Netflix and the Hulus, and you can find all this stuff, you must get just different people who now are finding your work.
It's great, and I have to say, I wasn't sure how the model was going to work working for Amazon, but man, oh man, they do it right. Just, they've really honed in on what has worked in the network and cable model, and then what hasn't worked. And to their credit, I feel like they've eliminated so much of what doesn't work, and they're all about just making quality programming. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, I want to thank you. We have just a few minutes left. Now, are you also the voice of Charles Schwab?
I was the sort of face of that for a period of time. Yeah, I was the guy. I was, the talk to Chuck guy.
Okay.
Which was great fun. That was a great gig. 4 days in New York, and we shot like 36 commercials.
It's good stuff.
Not bad.
You can't complain that. So, okay. So now you're new to social media.
Brand new.
Okay, now let's give some of your info. Now, Twitter, you're the real...
No, so on all platforms, it's Classic Chris D. At Classic Chris D is basically what it is. Classic, CLASSIC, Chris, CHRIS, D. At Classic Chris D.
And now you're starting to post on...
I'm starting to post on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm sort of getting my feet wet with
What do you post on Instagram?
I tend to sort of try and keep it professional. So if I'm working on something, it usually has to do with that. But I'm figuring out what the parameters are, what I want to post, and what feels like fun.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on.
It's a real pleasure being here.
I'm glad. I hit you up on Twitter. It takes a while. I was like, and I hate, but you came on, so it's great. So people follow him. Classic Chris D.
Yeah.
Classic Chris D. Follow him. Follow me on Instagram, Cooper Talk 1. Follow me on Twitter at Cooper Talk, because I tweet a lot during this political stuff. Just jokes. People don't get pissed at me. They start arguing on my Facebook page because all my Twitter goes to Facebook. I'm like, guys, I'm just joking around. Leave it alone. Also, you can email me, Cooper@coopertalk.net, and go to my website, coopertalk.net. I have 486 episodes up, so please do that. iTunes, Stitcher, one word, Cooper Talk. Want to give a shout out to my new affiliate, I forget, it's WROM in Detroit, WROM.com, or the WROM. I got to send this. So they just started with me. Don't worry about it. And also go to my other website, stopthesalt.com. You know, when I had a heart problem, I had to change my diet. So I had the cookbook. It's a low sodium recipes, 120 of them, easy to make. No pictures to intimidate you. The ingredients, hey, the basic ingredients. You don't have cumin. I cook with cumin, but if you don't have cumin, don't worry about it. You can get it on my website, stopthesalt.com. You can get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. But if you get it from me, 1, I'll sign it. 2, I'd make more money. So anyway, please follow me on Twitter at Cooper Talk. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins. I'll talk to you guys next week.